Well, after doing such a bad job, after talking about all kinds of areas in the painting, while the camera was only focused on this band, maybe I'll do a quick redo. Um, and then I'll zoom in, take you for a little trip through the painting. I was talking about cobalt blue and adding a little bit of yellow ochre to it to warm it up, along with the white. So you can kind of see in general, okay? In general, here, this way, cobalt blue. Here, this way, ultramarine blue, as the base blues. If I use straight ultramarine blue and white here, we'd have far too high a chroma, far too cartoonish a look to that ultramarine blue. So I killed it a little bit with some burnt sienna. Varying degrees of burnt sienna. I actually added a little bit of alizarin crimson in places too, just to tone it down. Give it a little variety, a hint of purple. I don't know what the camera shows, but it is slightly purple in areas, slightly sort of dirtyish blue in others, quite blue in others, you know. Then we come down here and we have the cobalt blue, a little bit here, here, and then we're adding our yellow ochre and white. Sky's got life, but not too much life, no competition. We have a good variety of rocks. I like that. You know, we have some fairly sharp angled ones here. You know, sort of looking at it from a different face now. You know, it's like when there are massive cliffs next to the highway and they're doing scaling, so they close the road for a bit to knock down these loose bits. It's like a whole other layer of rock on top of a layer of rock. In this particular rock's case, it has a bit of movement to it because it swings a little bit. You know, I kind of like that. It works okay. I know that in a photograph, things, because they're a photograph, people will believe them immediately. Often, a photograph does not make for a good painting because it doesn't look as plausible. So the viewer will sometimes say, depending on the viewer, rocks don't look like that. Well, you know, they do. Just have to go looking. Anyway, whether it makes for the plausible painting or not, I don't care. I like the painting. It's turned out well. This thing has been an aid, I think, to the rest of it. Fairly direct shadows back here, but no real direct sun on the distant ones. Direct sun beginning here, catching a bit of it here. Direct sun slightly on this edge, but then, as I said, off to the right and behind us, there's a bank of trees which begin to cast a shadow across the water and then climb up the rock here and back there. Sun's poking through these distant trees, and in some cases we have foliage from behind us blocking the sun. It's a ways away, so the graduation between dark and light is fairly gentle in most areas. The colors up here in this foliage are ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, touches of white, and here where I want it warmer, I added more yellow ochre. This is yellow ochre, ultramarine blue and white. This is ultramarine blue, yellow ochre and white. This is ultramarine blue, yellow ochre and white. Kind of strange, eh? Depending on the degrees or the amounts of paint that I've added to each pile, coupled with a slightly different brush stroke shape and design of the foliage, these kind of, you can see clearly these are different types of foliage, even though really pretty much three colors used: ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, white. Might be a hint of burnt sienna in spots, but boy, not worth mentioning. The burnt sienna is on the trunks. Burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and white. Same colors, but much more burnt sienna. Actually, I'm sorry, I used a little bit of raw umber here, mixed with those two other colors, and a touch of white. Bit of raw umber in this one as well. The rocks are all ultramarine blue, raw umber, and white. And the odd time I've injected a little bit of burnt sienna, or in some other places a little bit of alizarin crimson to go a little purple. Hints of alizarin crimson just in these little triangles I have sitting here. Here as well. Yeah, there's no cobalt blue mixed, no cobalt blue used as a blue in the rocks. It's pretty much all ultramarine. Water, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, white. Brought some alizarin crimson into the mix here, and yeah, maybe the odd stroke here and there. You know, I don't like just having one area of a certain value and hue. If I have that, then I'll try to add one more stroke, or maybe two, elsewhere, to help marry an area with a few flecks of it elsewhere. It just helps with the unity of the painting a little bit. I'm calling it done. Taking it upstairs to live with me, and if something bothers me enough, I'll take it back down and make a change. If it needs a change, it's going to be pretty minute. What was I going to say now? Yeah, there was a point I was going to make. I make this point a lot too. I could continue to work on it. There are a lot of spots that I see on this painting I think, oh, you know, I could just move this, or I could touch that up, or I could add light here, or I could darken that. Very tiny things. The problem with that is once I've reached this point, if I start to correct little technical anomalies, I'll end up with an overworked, very smooth painting, and the painting will loses its soul. It just does. It doesn't have that. I don't want a perfect painting. If a painting is perfect, it loses interest, you know, unless it's an illustration. That's a little different, or realism, that's different too. It's an impression. So this is my impression of this painting. Okay? It's not perfect. Actually, it's ugly. Okay, it's not quite ugly, but you know what I mean. It's a little off kilter, let's put it that way. All right, shut up, Phil. I'll take this off. No, I'll zoom in, as promised. Let's start up here. No need to go too close. Okay. I think that's close enough where you can see the brushwork. You know, as you can see, I lean towards cartoonish sometimes. I like it. I like the look of it. You know, when I began this, when I began painting, it's not that I was after. It's not that I wanted to go for a defined style. I just knew what I liked, and I saw elements of what I liked in other artists' work, and sort of, you know, I was affected by it. I made it my own, and I believe my, what you would call technique now, is quite distinctly my own. You know, I hate to pigeonhole it, call it this or that. I'll just say it's Impressionism. See the blue hills in the distance? Before I'd gotten much further on the painting, I had decided to just do those hills in blue, because I wanted to marry those distant hills with the sky. Purple I often use for a background as well for hills, but if that became too purple, it would be the only purple blob in the painting, and it would draw too much attention to itself, I felt, you know, off on the far right-hand corner like that. I wanted it to stay distant, so I wanted it to be almost part of the sky, but much lower value. I'm happy with the general appearance of the water. I'm happy with the lines. You know, we're sort of having a somewhat organized wave structure, but becomes much smaller and a little more confused as we get closer to shore. Drop the signature in there now. And the waves, you know, there's some rhythm to that, to the wave lines. And I enjoy that how they go from the lower left to upper right within the water, because of course our general sweep of the painting is going from upper left to lower right. So it makes a good kind of Yeah, a supportive opposition of line. All right, let's take this one off the easel. And as promised, let's put this one on the easel so that I can take you through it. Excuse me as I pass in front of your line of vision. So I don't remember what I said about it and what I didn't say about it. I know that I still had to work on this area, possibly down here even. I'm not sure. But I'll try to tell you what I don't think that I did say. I don't think I mentioned that by the time I had most of it painted in, I still felt that this bush was so light and a little bit too ethereal looking. It didn't look closer than these did. So, you know, I had to drop the value, and I might have even I think I brought the chroma down a little bit too, because of that I see little bits of what looks like cobalt blue mixed into my reds, to give this bush more presence and to allow for a more dynamic feel between this intense light and the dark paint there. I used a brush to lay in my trunks, even here. If you know, you'll see when I zoom in on it that a brush was used, or a knife was not used at least. But when you back up and look at the painting from the distance, which would be sort of normal for somebody to look at it, just to enjoy the scene, you're not going to notice that. But I wanted to have these branches in here, just needed some breaking up. It's almost as though these branches serve as a device to introduce this bush to this bush. Also, we have all these vertical lines of trunks. I wanted to break it up with a couple of twigs. It just needed more, let's just say, content, all right? The shape of this was here already, but just lowering the value and making for more drama along the edge of this bush, that alone is content, right? Increasing the content. Never mind the actual articles, the actual subject matter. So, did that. I'm happy with it now. I quite like it. It still has a feeling of looseness. You know, it's made of leaves. You know, I'm pleased with it. Brought some of these blues into here. I think we went through that already. Really, I think what I didn't talk about is I added a little more light onto these rocks. I didn't reflect the color from here onto these rocks. They just, for the sake of the painting, they became so dark, not interesting enough that I went in again over the paint that was there, which was already pretty dry at that point. Laid that in. This area was all very dark. Had a rock coming down here, and it was too much. This needs to be kept simple. All of this, despite the fact that it's important that you get it, you know, as closely as you can imagine it, or as closely as you can devise it, it really only provides support, ironically, for weaker shapes. That's why we keep the values down. This also was very kind of muddy looking, too muddy, so I went in with a little yellow ochre, a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of white, a little bit of cobalt blue. Just hinting at more of a variety of color, I suppose you'd say, in this area. And I think that pretty much covers what I was thinking pursuant to my last video of this painting. Let's zoom in now and take a little walk around in the bush. Sorry, every time I walk past the my camera tripod, I make a point of kicking it with my foot. Okay. Alright, I'm not going to zoom in too much. I'll give you sort of the idea in general. See that bush? It's all been pushed back and made weaker. But introducing very complementary blues, combination of cobalt and ultramarine blues, strengthened that upper right hand corner, so it provided a good balance for the left hand side, that strong tree. And I did end up putting a few small trees in the foreground there. You know, sure, there's color on them, but really they serve mostly as a silhouette. And then you can see this area. I put a few more colors in. Just a bit, just very sort of loosely, impressionistically, I would hope. Yeah, maybe a bit of dried grass up at the base of those trees. Dead grass. It is an autumn painting after all. And the signature. I don't recall if I took you up these bits of trunk, but maybe I'll do that right now because you don't see much to them until you zoom in. Once you zoom in, you see there's actually quite a bit there. There's quite a bit more color than a lot of people realize. It goes into a painting to keep it alive. Sorry about my jerkiness. Even when I'm not jerky, the damper on my camera isn't, the damper on my tripod isn't much of a damper. It's just kind of mechanical. But then I am no photographer, you know that. As evidenced by many of my videos. Okay, so that is that one. And I'm really happy with the way these two have turned out, actually. They're just hunky-dory as far as I'm concerned. Now, let me see if I'm in frame here. There we go. Take off those glasses. Oh. Time for another 16 by 20. I checked it out before leaving the shop and it's pretty straight, pretty square. Measurements are pretty good. But let me see. There's always a straighter edge and always a more crooked one. I always put the straighter edge on top. Always, always, always. Unless it's a massive painting, in which case it's usually not that important. And if there's a side that's too crooked, I just won't buy the canvas. Because that's a no good. Okay. It's strapped in, ready for the ride. Now I just have to get ready for the ride. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll probably know pretty shortly. Thanks for watching. Sorry about the last video. It's so dumb. It's so dumb that I did 2 videos in a row where I had not backed up the camera. I wasn't thinking that I was on camera. I get focused on the painting sometimes too much, or in doing too much yapping. I completely forget whether I'm on screen or not. And when I'm facing the canvas, I'm not looking at the viewfinder on the camera, so I lose focus. Anyway, that's good for now. Hope you have a great weekend. See you soon.